The other day I was in the corridor there where Ocean Breeze Nursery School is, and some little kids came out. They were, I think, ending their school day, and I was chatting with them, I guess, a little bit. And one little girl, and she reminded me of myself at that age, just a little bit bossy, you know. And she looks at me and she goes, "Who are you?" And I said, "Oh, well, I'm so glad you asked. Did you know that your school is in a church? And this is, so this is a church, and I'm the minister of the church." And of course, the next question you can anticipate, she says, "What's a minister?" And you know how sometimes you just happen to have the words, because usually I'd be like, where do I start? And I said, she reminded me of Lucy Van Pelt, and so that kind of brings out my inner Lucy, you know, like, well, I said, well, a church is a place where we take care of our spirits and our hearts and souls. And I am the minister of the church, and that means that I'm the person who spends all of her time working with the church to take care of our hearts and spirits. And so then she says, "What's a spirit?" And I said, the spirit. And of course the teacher is standing here like, you know, like being very respectful, but clearly thinking this could go on all day. And so I said, the spirit is a part of all of us that we can't see, but it's where our love lives, and it's the part of us that even when our bodies aren't alive anymore, becomes part of the big universe and the whole world that is like living and being alive, and it just goes on and on. And I knew she didn't really care because there were brand new chicks that were just hatched. You know, so I was thinking to myself for about 10 seconds, I was like, oh, I'm having this wonderful conversation with a child, and I'm enlightening this child, its first encounter with talking about spirituality, but really, she wants to talk about the newborn chicks. But the next thing that she said was this exact thing: "I like inchworms." So that was just the best thing, and so I actually got to sing "Inchworm" by Hans Christian Andersen, and by that point they thought I was truly, truly weird. The thing that it made me think about, though, in preparation for our annual meeting and all of this work that we do as a congregation, is that, you know, if we can't explain to a child what we do, then it's probably getting too complicated in some ways. And so I was thinking about that question all week and putting together, this meeting with our board and our leaders. And I realized the fact is that is what we're trying to do. We have values by which we are trying to live. We have a place out of the heart that we're trying to live by. We have values that we're trying to share in the world. Yeah, we have an agenda. We don't maybe go around proselytizing people and saying you need to convert to Unitarian Universalism, but we darn well have an agenda. We want there to be more inclusiveness, more celebration of diversity, more welcoming spirit. We believe that there is abundance in the universe and that we could all sacrifice more to make more available to everyone so that no one is living completely in privation. And we believe in caring for the earth and not having dominion over it. So we have a lot of beliefs, even though we are not a traditional looking church in some ways. But here's how we're structured, in case you don't know. I'm actually going to start with the ministry teams, Francie, so let's do that first. The thing is that we gather in ministry. That's what we call the sort of activity of everything that we do as a church. It's ministry because it is relational above all else. No matter what we accomplish, if it wasn't done relationally in a careful and considerate way, then it's not really ministry. And that's what we're always striving for in our leadership. We do a lot of business, yes, but it's always in the context of ministry. And that's why it takes so long. If we were a business, we could go zip, zip, make a decision, authority, hierarchy, boom, boom, it's done. Too bad if your feelings are hurt. That's not how churches work. They are relational, they're in ministry. And so we have ministry teams that just help the people in the congregation organize around certain affinities, certain dear concerns and loves. So the first thing we do is caring ministries, and that's all of us. That's pastoral care. Every single one of us participates in that. Either we're giving or we're receiving. We have a church history ministry team now because we value our past and we want to carefully archive it for the future. We have a faith development ministry team because we care about spiritual growth. That's one of our top priorities, from teeny children up to, to death. We are always learning. We are learning and we're not done. So we really are committed to faith development, and we used to call that religious education. Global Congregations Ministry Team connects us to our larger denomination, globally to our partner church in Transylvania, and here to our local region, the Mass Bay District of the Unitarian Universalist Association. So that helps us be connectional across our covenant with our association. Our Green Sanctuary Ministry Team, well, not every congregation has one of those. Ours does because we have a lot of people here who care about eco-justice and stewardship of the earth and environmentalism. And that's one of our most vibrant ministry teams, partly because they meet at Tony's house and they share a fabulous meal and they have a great time. The Membership and Hospitality Ministry Team looks after the ministry of welcoming and all that encompasses and helps keep before us. Wait a minute, let's not get too wrapped up in I'm seeing my friends, but really looking outward and making sure that we have a welcoming presence and programs, and we keep track of membership. Our Properties Ministry Team takes care of this beautiful plant campus, and there's so much of it, and it's a huge amount of work. And it's such a concern that these are the people who think about the roof actually has to be replaced. And there was a leak and all of the things that those of us who don't think about that just take for granted when we come swinging into the beautiful building and then there's new flooring suddenly, Social Justice Ministry Team is the team that connects us to service in the community, in the world, justice issues, stuff that we got to get on board with. And they help organize that and mobilize us, and they also help us make contributions to charitable organizations that our congregation has committed to making. And that's a lot of funds get spent that way. And our Worship Arts Ministry Team needs to be strengthened, but obviously it's involved with music and worship and taking care of the sanctuary on Sunday mornings whenever we have those programs. Every program in the church connects to one of these ministry teams, and the minister has oversight over them and responsibility for them, assisted by the director of faith development and the music director. Whew. And it's open to all members. You don't have to join. You don't have to be can I go to a meeting? Just go. And there's no term limits. You're free to go and to as you're able. So let's look at the committees real quick. Our committees sustain the institution of the church. See, we're a congregation that's concerned with spiritual growth, and we're also an historic institution, and a complicated one at that. So our committees do the formal business of the church in terms of fiscal, stewardship, policy, and keeping the institution strong. The committees are staffed by members. I don't like the word volunteer. You know why I don't like the word volunteer when it comes to church? Because that's what church is by nature. It's a voluntary organization. So it's weird. It's will you volunteer? Well, that's what it is to be a church. Do you know what I mean? Okay. It's just a funny thing lately I'm noticing. Because if the church doesn't run the church, then there can't be a church. Legally, there actually can't be a church if there are not members who care about it and are stewards of it, there actually can't be a church. You can't have a minister and a staff and have it be a church. It actually isn't, it's not a legal entity. It's not an entity of a church anymore. So the board does a huge amount of emotional labor, carrying responsibility for the institution. And the Board of Trustees and the Governance Committee set the agenda for monthly meetings. The Governance Committee sets the agenda. The Finance Committee, as you can imagine, takes care of that. Grants Committee, again, sends, we're lucky because we have this largesse to send out into the community. The Grants Committee determines who gets scholarships. Investments Committee takes care of our endowment with a firm, professional firm. Nominating and Leadership Development looks around and says, who is next in line to take part of this emotional burden, take on part of this responsibility? And can we talk to them and help them see that they'd be good at it, and we'd love to work with them. And the Personnel Committee works with the minister on staff issues. The board and its committees are responsible for the stewardship of this institution. And so they are constantly thinking about it and carrying it in their hearts. So I'm rushing a little bit because I'm aware that we have our meeting to get through. As we go about our ministries, we could be doing a ton of stuff. We could be all over the place. But our congregation develops a vision of ministry every few years to help guide it and set its priorities for the coming years, however long the vision of ministry is meant to last. And our current vision of ministry, and it should be in your order of service, right? Is the vision of ministry in there? It's printed most Sundays. Is it? Okay. It sets these priorities because basically the leaders get together and say, what do we need to focus on? Because with all of the things going on, we could be pulled in multiple directions. So we are, right now, our vision of ministry is 4 items. One is increasing lay leadership, volunteerism, so everybody participating, and hospitality, and those are all connected. Helping people integrate into the congregation and then integrate even more deeply so that every one of you can feel that you can take on some responsibility within the organization. Committing ourselves, number 2 is committing ourselves to strengthening our church's sense of unity and community. And that helps us remember that if I have a special passion and I really want my church to care about it, I may gather 10 people and find them and say, we are all super psyched about this and into it. But we always have to remember that we are a larger institution. So let's keep on being in touch with and aware of other things that are going on in the church, and remember that we're all one. We're one church. We're not 4 or 5. And we always have to keep communicating. Oh, we spend so much of our time just checking in. Can we have that date? What do you guys think? Can we partner on this? And 3 is connecting to our surrounding communities and our denomination through service, celebration, and supportive presence. So let's make sure that we don't forget that we're part of the larger Unitarian Universalist movement, and show up at things where we need to be represented. Let's remember that we're in the town of Swampscott and that we want our congregation to be connected to important initiatives in Swampscott and in Lynn, where we have a very strong commitment. And just keep celebrating, because if we don't do things with joy, why bother? Part of what the church keeps alive at all seasons is that we're going to die someday. That's part of what we hold in our awareness as part of the cycle of life, and we celebrate people's lives here when they've ended. So we're really aware that do it with joy. You know, we're not doing it alone. We believe that there's a greater force in the universe impelling us toward justice, do it with joy, or else don't do it. Some things you gotta let them go. And supportive presence, solidarity. And our fourth vision of ministry is an articulation of the ongoing conversation this congregation has had since it moved into Swampscott, which is, how do we stay connected to our city of origin, Lynn, where two of our congregations originated, and out of which our endowment came? And how do we serve well and faithfully there? What does that look like? And what might that look like in the near future? Some people think that we should have an organization presence there, some kind of a Unitarian Universalist ministry. Some of us talk about joining existing programs and institutions that are there, and maybe giving a considerable gift. But whatever we do, let me just tell you and assure you, as your minister, that the board keeps this question alive, that it faithfully revisits it constantly, that I'm fairly obsessed with it because I understand that it's a burning coal at the center of congregational identity for many people, and that we just had a 3-hour consultation with a strategic planning expert to talk about just this issue. And what we were able to discuss, as you will read in Claire Campbell's board report, is how much we are already doing, and how much we need to think about capacity, and to recognize whatever we do beyond what we are currently doing will require yet more capacity. And that's just something we've got to be realistic about and be in discernment about constantly. Before I hand actually we will take an offering in a moment, because that's a huge part of what we do too. We send a lot out into the world as gifts. Thank you for listening, because it's a lot that I wanted to share with you, because this is a good time of year to kind of review the big picture. There are a few people who have been chairs of ministry teams that I'd like to thank, and just who are rolling off. I don't know where we get that expression, rolling off. Who are rolling off chairing ministry teams, and I'd like to just thank them and wish them a sweet summer with some gift certificates for ice cream at Kelly's Cream, so that I have this vision of them just strolling down the Lynn Way, licking ice cream cones with whoever they choose to treat. Mary Spiropoulos has been chair of our faith development ministry team. So Mary, I have a little token for you. Suzanne Forgione has been the chair of the social justice ministry team with Mike Salona for a while. And here, sweetie, thank you. And has the big project that Suzanne has lost sleep over many years is our big party at my brother's table every winter, and so that's part of what she has done. So this is just ministry teams, and Michael Salona is not here today, but thank you for everybody for all your work on our ministry teams, and our board president will talk about our committees next, as we very, very soon have our annual meeting.